get started on this week's movie math, I'm going to get really analytical. And I was like, do I have enough positive things that I'm saying about Taylor Swift for Swiftie fans who want to celebrate? So I just want to say up front how incredibly impressed I am with Taylor Swift as an artist for sure, but there are lots of talented singers and other artists out there. What really consistently sets people apart and makes them superstars is business sense, which is very interesting because sometimes some of us will argue about the importance of having any business savvy as a creative individual. For instance, look at my Killers of the Flower Moon review, right? And I think that, I think you can't deny. I mean, I'm not saying, creative people who don't have any business acumen can't be successful. But if you want to be a truly earth-shattering figure, you need to have the business sense or someone you're working with. Even Walt had Roy. Even Lucille Ball had Desi Arnaz, who actually was a business genius. And the list just goes on and on and on. If we'll see what happens with Beyonce with her concert later on. But if you see someone who is making moves at the level of Taylor Swift, odds are, it's for sure, go find the business person, because that is just as much responsible for that person, for the success of that situation as the creativity. And that's where Hollywood does its best work, where business and creativity go hand in hand. All right, so, because, sometimes it's too businessy and it seems soulless and like a cash grab, which people are becoming more savvy to. But then sometimes it's too artistic and doesn't have broad enough appeal and can't bring in any revenue to cover the expense. So if you're going to be really artistic, hopefully you can make your movie for very little money. Although with Gareth Edwards, it still wasn't low enough. All right, so hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where as more and more moviegoers feel less and less movies are worth a trip to the multiplex, multiplexes have been forced to try and think outside the box, which is exactly what AMC and Taylor Swift have done. Although it wasn't AMC's idea. Taylor Swift and her family went to the studios, said, we don't like this deal, went to AMC, and AMC said, yeah, hey, sure, we'd love to do that. We'll see if AMC can, pivot and, continue on this path. But we're going to talk about that. I'm very, there's a lot of questions that have been raised. The only definitive is that Taylor Swift has just made even more money. It's incredible. All right, I think, in profit from her concert and now this, she's probably going to make $400 to $500 million. That's in take home, not revenue. Take home. All right, so AMC and Taylor Swift have thought outside the box without Hollywood being a part of the conversation, which is a polite business way of saying not part of the money. Hollywood is totally cut out of all this money. And the only reason Hollywood isn't going to be mean about it is because they're hoping to get in on the money going forward. They're like, whew, that was a mistake. Is it karma, by the way, as Hollywood has tried to cut out creatives from getting any of the money from streaming? Maybe. I'm just saying. I'd be like, how does it feel, studios? And they're like, not great. Can anyone else duplicate Taylor Swift's success? That's what everyone's asking right now. Not only because they're curious, but in some cases, they'd like to duplicate Taylor Swift's success. Hard to tell. Let me break it down. So Beyonce will try in early December. It's not looking so good so far, but it's early days. But for Taylor Swift, it does always help to be first out of the gate. I think that's very beneficial to her. She's like, there have been movie concerts before, but not at this scale for a concert this successful. Again, first out of the gate makes you the Coca-Cola of whatever you're first out of the gate for. Also, this weekend, Taylor Swift fans had the multiplexes all to themselves. They could take all the theaters, and they also had the whole building pretty much to themselves. What happens next weekend when they have to share the multiplex with their complete opposite, Martin Scorsese fans? Oh man, that's going to be so brutal. Oppenheimer and Barbie fans could coexist. But I'm curious as to whether or not Scorsese and Taylor Swift fans can. Already, Scorsese fans, and I warned about this, fear their sacred multiplex pilgrimage will be interrupted by Taylor Swift fans entering and leaving their theater and potentially in the theater next door, going nuts in there. I'm glad they're having a good time, but it's going to really suck if you're trying to watch Killers of the Flower Moon next door. I hope the theaters are, keeping that in mind when they're booking the theater to put the movies in. I wouldn't put those two close together. and also try to keep people, like if you want to celebrate Taylor Swift and what a great time you just had, go do it in the lobby. Don't do it as soon as you get out of the theater, please. We'll see. If you are going to see a Taylor Swift this weekend, take pity on the Scorsese fans, please. I'm surprised that anyone would see the Taylor Swift movie after opening weekend, to be honest with you. But they did some polling, and some people said they did plan to see it more than once in theaters, which I find very surprising. Never would have guessed that. But there should be some people there. All right, so I will say, though, that hardly anyone seems to be interested in any of these movies that are playing. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem outside of fans for Killers of the Flower Moon. As we've been seeing from recent top 10s, including this very weekend's, all these movies are, they're just, killing time till they get to digital, with just a few exceptions. Certainly not any movies that have released in the last few weeks. Some of you told me that outside the United States, multiplexes already not only show concert movies, but sporting events, comedy shows, and more. Is that the future of the North American multiplex as well? And why have they been sleeping on this revenue generator? Why did Taylor Swift have to come up with the idea if they're doing it? One of you told me they're doing it in Mexico. That's right south of the border, for Pete's sake. All right, so, and would that be the great equalizer for live events? I'm not sure. Would it make them more affordable and accessible? But it's not the same experience. You're not actually there with the artist that you want to experience. It's still, for better or worse, a movie. So what you're really paying for is the big screen and the camaraderie of having a fellow audience, which, would be worth less. So that's why the ticket's lower. But I do wonder, because it's not a live event. I do feel that Taylor Swift's concert movie should have been a one-weekend event. Like, this was it, and then it would leave, and Martin Scorsese fans could go and watch and not be scared, and et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. We'll see what the box office looks like in the next couple of weeks. Maybe Taylor Swift will be like, see? If she has anything less than a 50% drop, it's going to be incredible, quite frankly. So these events at multiplexes could be made to maybe feel more like they were live special events if they were for just a weekend or just for a single night. Maybe that's the future of this kind of event, if the drops are significant for Taylor Swift going forward. I thought, for instance, this is interesting. I thought, for instance, that Chris Rock's explosive Netflix comedy special, his first time commenting on The Slap, which debuted live on the Netflix streaming service, was very effective. That trended like crazy. Everybody tuned in, and it was really interesting to watch it live and experience it. It did feel like you were watching a live event. Taylor's concert has been going on for months now, almost a year, and still has a ways to go. But anyway, I thought the Chris Rock thing was very successful. And another example of outside-the-box thinking. However, Netflix never duplicated it, nor did anyone else. And that was a while ago at this point. And it's not hard to put together a comedy show. So it's not like they need a lot of lead time to get it together. So that makes me feel that while it was a big event for Chris Rock, it did not really behoove Netflix from their streaming strategy. What does a streaming service need? Well, you didn't pay for Chris Rock's show individually. It was included in your subscription. So they need things that last, that people will watch for weeks and months after they debut, and helps combat churn. But if the Chris Rock live special is only valuable in the first 24 to 48 hours, then that's not actually worth anything to Netflix. But maybe it's worth something in a movie theater where you would pay a ticket price. I actually would love, if it would be cheaper, because comedy tickets can be expensive, for maybe middle of the road comedians, maybe it would be fun to go, if you could only see it in theaters for the really big name headliners. I think this deserves I think this deserves some thought, but I don't think it's going to be so easy to duplicate is how I would put it. But bottom line, as the capitalist saying goes, where there's money, there's a way, right? I put a little capitalist spin on the Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park line. And oh boy, does there seem to be a lot of money here, especially for Taylor Swift. Now, Taylor Swift didn't come close to the Avengers Endgame or No Way Home opening weekends, despite headlines indicating she might. These prediction headlines cause an awful lot of problems. I'm starting to think they do more harm than good, because my first thought was, she didn't make $100 million. She's so close. She's in a photo finish with Joker for the biggest opening in October ever. That's incredible. We'll know for sure who wins by the end of the day Monday, tomorrow. But still, that was my initial. What was your reaction when you saw the headline that she didn't hit 100? And that's because everyone said she would. But she still came so close, and that's an incredible opening, especially for the post-pandemic world right now. I mean, I don't think prediction headlines help that much, okay? I think they still kind of benefit a little bit as warnings, that, managing expectations, but maybe even that way. I guess there's nothing you can do about them. But boy, it's tough, even for Taylor Swift. And because Swift and AMC cut out the Hollywood studios, all this money is pretty much theirs in the theaters. Now, usually, as we've discussed before, studios take 80 to 100% of the box office for the first few weekends that a movie plays, arguing that the theaters are getting revenue from the concession stand sales, which is why concession stands food is so expensive and why they push it so hard. Because that's the way they make their money. They're not, in many cases, not making any money from the initial ticket sales. Now, as a movie plays in theaters, as it goes week to week to week, the percentage split starts to shift in the favor of movie theaters to incentivize them to keep it on their screens. However, as the studios shrink the theatrical window, that revenue stream is fading for theaters. There is no later for a lot of these movies down the line. So that's very interesting. Now here, right away, opening weekend, all theaters that play this movie, because it's not just exclusive to AMC theaters, even though they're their distributor. We'll talk about that in a moment. But every theater who played Taylor Swift got 47% of the box office. That is very nice. Very, very nice. While the rest is being split heavily in Taylor Swift's favor between her and AMC. Now, one of the reasons that Taylor Swift and AMC could agree to this deal and do it is because they have almost no overhead. Taylor Swift simply filmed an elaborate concert that was very elaborate, very cool, but it was already paid for. The concert was going to go ahead whether she filmed it or not. And in fact, it's a revenue generator all on its own. By the time it's done, Taylor Swift's concert is expected to have earned, or not the profit, but the revenue 10 times this opening weekend. That's amazing. And because of her peak popularity right now, nobody had to really advertise this either. She could do stuff on her social media accounts, but her fans advertised the movie for her. I mean, that's incredible, right? When comic book and franchise fans in the movie space weren't so upset with their franchises, they did a lot of the advertising as well. So it's important that your fans are excited and happy for your work. That's why studios need to stop fighting with them so much and put out an olive branch. I mean, I know it sucks, and I know that the fans say some hurtful things, although sometimes I think they're, it's a mix. Just like, it's a mix. But at the end of the day, everybody from movies to sports teams to musicians, they need their fans. Because you know what a fan is? A fan is a consumer. All right, so anyway, something to think about. All right, now, these days, the studios find themselves, when they're releasing movies, substantially in the hole financially for the type of film in particular that can still get moviegoers to head to the multiplex, which is a major blockbuster. The studio's got to make the movie, they have to pay to advertise the movie, and neither is cheap. So yeah, I think it's reasonable that they want almost all of that box office up front, because on the flip side, the theaters aren't put out financially at all for blockbusters. They're not taking any financial risk. They can cry about not getting a bigger cut up front, but what did they really put on the line, right? They have no skin in the game. And so that I think that's something they could think about. Maybe movie theater companies could start investing in films to a degree, right? How weird is it to see AMC theaters in the top 10 listed as a distributor? I mean, that's blowing my mind. And there's Fathom Events at number 7 being like, we started all this, thank you. They're like, why didn't Taylor Swift come to us? That's hilarious. I think because they would have to split even more. Taylor Swift would have had to split maybe more with Fathom Events, and then the theater, it would have been tough to handle that negotiation. She just went directly to the person who would play it. But that's interesting. She could have also started her own distribution company, but then she'd have to hire executives and learn the business. And so, that really doesn't work, at least right now. I mean, maybe in the future she might consider it, or somebody should maybe consider it, but then they'll still get a cut. It's interesting. I wonder what new businesses and companies might spring from this. All right, so, or if the studios will start their own divisions. That's what I might do. That's maybe what I would do if I were another Hollywood studio, or just a Hollywood studio, because they're not in this mix at all. I'd be like, I think I need a concert, a live event division, and I'm going to start looking for that with a little bit more favorable shares to get you to come to me. I love it. See, that's really good. I bet we see that. Also, speaking of spending money, maybe movie theaters could spend a little money on improving the theatrical experience, because so many of us go to the movies these days because we're like, I miss going to the movies. Then we go and say, never again. That That was horrible. So I think that's something that they might want to think about as well. It seems movie theaters, the theater companies, never spend any money. They don't want to put any skin in the game, ever. All right, so I feel that at the end of the day, well, this is absolutely fantastic for Taylor Swift, making her even more legendary as both an artist and a businesswoman, not to mention even richer, although very much to her credit, she has proven to be quite generous in cutting her team in at all levels in on her success. The studios could learn a little something on that too. Although Taylor Swift doesn't have union crew to a degree. That's a difficult situation. They got a gift from Taylor Swift. They didn't show up with their hands out, which I think would have created a different dynamic between them and Taylor Swift. It's interesting. Interesting business. I'd encourage everyone not to jump on this, though, on live events like they did streaming, which blew up in Hollywood's face, as we've been discussing. And I think we really need to wait and see how Beyonce, a huge star, Beyonce, how she does in December, because right now, this pre-sale comparison is shocking. All right, so I would also, by the way, caution Taylor Swift to take a break after all this exposure, because you don't want to see her Jennifer Lawrence or Dwayne Johnson herself. I feel she's right at the cusp of that. Some of you got upset when I said that. You were like, how dare you say anything negative about Taylor Swift? Well, wouldn't you prefer that I warn her before it happens instead of saying, oh, it's a shame that happened? What do you think? Do you think Taylor Swift is overexposed? I think she's right on the line. I think she should take like an immediate break. That's what I would recommend. Now that the movie's open and it opened with 100 million, I think she should significantly step back for the rest of the year. And continue with her tour. But that's what I would recommend. I would stop going to Travis Kelce's games unless he goes to the Super Bowl. No one's not going to go to the Super Bowl. But I think that's what I would recommend, Go back to the fans, less about celebrity friends and that kind of stuff. Because that was one of the reasons Taylor Swift was so popular in the first place. All right, I'm curious what your thoughts are, Swifties and non-Swiftie fans, because we're all living in Taylor Swift's world now. I love it. Now, did you see Taylor Swift's concert movie this weekend? I couldn't make myself do it. I was like, 2 hours and 45 minutes. I don't want to do that. But I'm curious, what was the experience like compared to seeing a regular movie? And are you eager to do it again, either for Taylor Swift or maybe also a different artist? Which artist? Another live event? Would you do a comedy show, a sporting event? What are you interested in? And are you going to buy Taylor Swift's concert movie? This is the big one when it becomes available on digital, because I think those sales could be even bigger than this theatrical box office. Because I think, it's to click buy and own it forever and put it on in the background and stuff. I could see that being big. I mean, and are Swifties pirates? I don't think they are, actually. I think Taylor Swift fans show up and spend a lot of money. So they're good fans for her. All right, because Taylor Swift, and you know what? She delivered for her fans. Look at these audience scores. That's incredible. I mean, the review score is also very strong, but who's going to give this movie a bad review? And I don't think that many people even reviewed it, quite frankly. So anyway, her fans are legion, so she doesn't need to have crossover appeal. As you can see, she doesn't. 82% female. Barbie, interestingly, was 71% female, which is also significant, but this was even more women. Taylor Swift has pretty broad appeal when it comes to age, although, as you can see, significantly less so when it comes to ethnicity. Although, again, who cares? It's $100 million worth. I mean, she has a lot of the same type of person, and so that's all she needs. As for the rest of the top 10, the significant loss of screens might have affected some of these movies, but again, let's be honest, nobody was that excited about them to begin with. It seems families still like heading to the multiplex, as Paw Patrol not only had one of the best holds of the weekend, but is ahead, not by much, but ahead of most of the other movies domestically. There are 4 horror films in theaters right now. Surely they're cannibalizing each other. That was dumb, Hollywood. We'll see what happens with Five Nights at Freddy's, which is going to debut simultaneously on Peacock. Is that thinking outside the box too? I'm curious to see what happens at the end of the month. Although we have to wait a month, an extra month, to see what the Nielsen numbers are to get any realistic statistics on one half of the play. Frustrating. All right. And dumb money is just embarrassing itself at this point. I asked a friend in the industry why they thought Dumb Money had not yet hit digital, considering how poorly it's doing theatrically. But my friend countered that since Sony is adamant that this is an awards play, that rushing it to digital would undermine its chances. I don't know. I think it being such a big flop has really undermined its chances. I think its only real shot now is Best Adapted Screenplay nomination. How do you feel about Dumb Money as an awards contender? Or have you also not seen it because you're waiting for it to hit digital? I think almost everyone's waiting for that movie to hit digital. It looks so much like a digital movie. I think pretty quickly we've been able to look at a movie and be like, theatrical? Digital. We can tell. Why can't the studios? I mean, it's really obvious. All right, so over on streaming, let's start with Nielsen, per usual, for mid-September. Remember, they're a month behind. Where Suits has finally been dethroned. Thank goodness they got that spin-off deal in place because they're no longer number one. But look, they were dethroned by Virgin River. Sometimes I don't understand the people who watch television. It's a different audience to some degree, but it's a much bigger one because it's in the comfort of your own home or wherever you are. Because of course, oh, by the way, someone clarified who's a Nielsen family that Nielsen does, it's only in North America, but Nielsen does count digital views, like on iPads, phones, etc. So that is in the mix. And fascinatingly, look at this. Elemental hit Disney Plus with an even bigger debut than The Little Mermaid a few weeks ago. Oh, that's exciting. I like both those movies. I like Elemental a scooch more, but I like Little Mermaid. I feel bad that movie didn't do well. And One Piece fans, you can feel good that the show is still holding on in the overall top 10 and is then even number 3 on the originals chart. Now, Ahsoka did surge with the big Anakin Skywalker episode, but it wasn't enough of a surge to get it back on the overall chart. But it did okay. It's solid here. It's like number 4 on the OG charts. That's not bad. And look, Apple TV got their. I mean, it's not great. I don't want to like misrepresent it. It's not great for Ahsoka, but I mean, it could be worse. It could have stayed low or slipped lower. But we'll see what happens after the Anakin episode. I don't think that Ahsoka ever really delivered on the promise of what it was supposed to give to both prequel Filoni fans and Star Wars fans. I'm curious what you think. Again, it seemed very much like a tease for something in the future. But Apple TV got their 3rd show ever on the Nielsen charts. Ted Lasso, Hijack, and now The Morning Show. In its 3rd season. So it took 3 seasons, but I'm glad it's this show because that's probably Apple TV's most expensive show with the paydays for Witherspoon and Aniston. I'd be like, I think the numbers would be a little higher for considering what we're paying them. But the Morning Show did help put, and Steve Carell at the time, did help put Apple TV on the map. So it was important. And hey, Reese Witherspoon, another tremendous businesswoman. Very talented. She got Jennifer Aniston that money. I don't think Jennifer Aniston wouldn't have gotten that. I don't think Jennifer Aniston would have gotten that much for The Morning Show if Reese Witherspoon wasn't having her match her salary. All right, so over on the movies chart, The Little Mermaid is still swimming around to her credit, giving Disney Plus the top 2 movies. I mean, it's not as strong anywhere near as Elemental. It's falling off, but it's better than all the other movies, which are bad. But first, Moana is also still on here, but Encanto just can't rally back onto this list, interestingly enough. Also interesting, Encanto makes its network ABC debut this evening to celebrate Disney's 100th anniversary. So that should be pretty good. We'll talk about that on what's coming up this week. I'll give you a little more details on that. You might want to at least DVR it. Also, while overall these numbers are, again, crazy low for movies, it's nice to see a lot of different streaming services in here, right? Peacock with some recent theatrical releases, and Prime Video with some original movies. So that's good. Then with Netflix's charts for just last week, new sexy thriller Fair Play couldn't unseat Reptile, proving that star power does make a difference. Because I think it's like some star power in Fair Play and almost like negative star power. In Reptile, and like, sorry, Alden Ehrenreich and Phoebe Bridgers, she was almost Lois Lane from Bridgerton, but I think they're like negative star power. All right, even though, I'm not familiar with Bridgerton, but I like Alden Ehrenreich. I don't know if things are going to work out for him. He was even in Oppenheimer, but it's not cool. He's not gelling. All right, so, and with the TV charts, one area that's been consistently big for Netflix is celebrity documentaries. Learn more about your favorite celebrities. Go behind the scenes of their life. And the latest one, Beckham, sure enough, debuted at number 1. Those things do pretty well on social media as well. There was one clip where he kind of called out his wife, Posh Spice, which did quite well online. So that's great, organic, natural. Again, fans advertising for you. One Piece is still a very solid hit, although Castlevania Nocturne is still pretty low down for its first full week on these charts. But it still got renewed because apparently animation is inexpensive. Then with iTunes on their charts, it's entirely recent theatrical releases. And I thought about this. I not only feel that it's because, of course, so many people are just waiting for these movies to hit digital because they don't want to go to see them in theaters for expense reasons, and also, it's better. They prefer to watch them at home. But also, it occurred to me that when it comes to older movies, why pay for those on iTunes when you can stream them at no extra cost on all the streaming services? Pretty much you can Google, where can I watch this old movie streaming, and you'll find out. And for the most part, although I find a lot of classic films that aren't for some reason. I'm like, why is the movie I want to watch never on a streaming service? But for the most part, I think especially because most people don't watch movies that are that old, like you're certainly not watching stuff from the 40s and the 50s. You can find it on a streaming service. How far back do you go with movies? I love movies made in the 40s and 50s. I think they're phenomenal. Not a big fan. 60s are okay. Not a huge fan of the 70s. And then the 80s and 90s are great. But the fact they started to classify those as classic films drives me nuts. They're like Ferris Bueller in the classic section. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And it undercuts 1940s films. All right. So anyway, I watched National Velvet again the other day, and it was just a delight. All right, so a lot of these movies, by the way, though, these recent theatrical releases are excellent, and I'm just glad people are watching them at some point. Like that top three is fire. And kudos to the tremendous staying power of Jennifer Lawrence's No Hard Feelings. I said that would do better on digital, and I feel it's going to be even bigger on Netflix, where it should be showing up shortly. Lawrence still has a lot of work to do. She overexposed herself. Beware, Taylor Swift. But so Jennifer Lawrence has a lot of work to do building her career back up. But I would call this most recent step a success for her. It certainly went better than that Apple TV movie she made last year that absolutely nobody paid any attention to. All right, as for this coming weekend, that's right, Martin Scorsese hopes to strike a blow for cinema with Killers of the Flower Moon. Right now it's expected, and I gotta tell you, a lot of you are really right there with him. Even if the movie's not great, I reviewed it. I think some of you are like, who cares? We must fight for cinema. So I hope it's okay for you. Right now it's expected to open at about half of what Oppenheimer did. As I said in my review, I hope you'll go check it out. Don't expect Goodfellas, as they've been advertising the movie. This is more Gangs of New York. So I think it would help if you went in expecting the right type of movie. But anyway, Oppenheimer was a 3-hour plus epic from an auteur filmmaker as well, but opened much bigger. A decade ago, The Wolf of Wall Street, also from Scorsese and DiCaprio, and also 3 hours plus, that opened with just $18.3 million. That's interesting. That was a decade ago. So that was Margot Robbie's first big movie, too. That was her breakout film. Although I had seen her previously on Pan Am, not a bad television show, although Christina Ricci was better on the show, and I feel bad that nobody ever did anything with Christina Ricci. They just totally ignored her. Hollywood's a rough business. All right, so Killers of the Flower Moon cost $200 million to make, while Oppenheimer cost just $100 million to make. Oh, Scorsese, where did all that money go? I saw the movie. I don't understand. I will say, it certainly is a gorgeous movie, and that's always nice to see in a theater. As for digital releases, Warner Brothers has not one but 2 animated movies coming out based on their IP, Mortal Kombat and DC. It's great to see Warner Brothers finally doing a lot with Mortal Kombat, and their animated movies must be doing well because this is I think the 3rd or 4th one. That's an adult movie, by the way. It might be animated, but I believe it's rated R. All right, so anyway, then with streaming movies, Netflix has Old Dads from Bill Burr. I think that could do quite well for them. And again, Encanto makes its network debut tonight on ABC at 8/7 Central. Along with this is the reason to tune in. I mean, Encanto obviously is a great movie, but it's been available for a while now. But they have a brand new short, Once Upon a Studio, that you'll be able to see for the very first time. And I wonder if it'll be made available online afterwards, or if maybe it won't be able to be seen again until maybe Wish comes out in theaters. And speaking of Wish, we're at the very least getting a sneak peek of Wish tonight as well. Kelly Ripa promised some other surprises, so we'll see. And it's very weird. On my DVR, because I DVR'd it, because I'm like, I'll watch it later and see what the surprises are. but it's listed just as Encanto instead of Disney's 100th anniversary celebration. And I'm like, what the heck? How'd that happen? So tape Encanto, but it's supposed to have all that other stuff in there. As for shows, Rick and Morty returns tonight on Adult Swim with the new actor, right, voicing, I think, the main characters after that scandal. Although everybody apparently says they can't tell, so let's just go. And then on Thursday, Wolf Like Me returns on Peacock. I actually kind of liked the first season. I thought that was a pretty good show. I'm a big Isla Fisher fan. I don't think I'm going to rush to watch season 2, but I'll watch it at some point, I think. Bodies drops on Netflix. That looks cool to me. And Paramount Plus has new UK show, The Burning Girls. Then on Friday, I'm sorry to say, Upload Season 3 starts up again on Prime Video. I really disliked this season, and I loved Seasons 1 and 2. I feel they have nowhere to go, and it got kind of gross and frustrating and annoying. There were some interesting things, but I got to tell you, I have the whole season, but I only got to like through episode 3.5, and then I just stopped watching. I'm not going to finish it, I don't think. So that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of the success of Taylor Swift and AMC? And what do you think it potentially means, or maybe doesn't mean, for the movie, theatrical, and music industries? Oh, that Taylor Swift, she's really branching out. All right, so share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.